Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I've got 3 terrifying Dogman encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. The first link I'd like to share with you is Tromic's lead delivery system, home of the original 458 SOCOM, and owned by Tony Ramore, a true American. He designed an AR upper to be attached to your existing AR lower and blast 458 instead of 223 or 556. He designed this for our troops in the Middle East to stop truck bombs. Straight across the board, guys, the 458 is gonna stop a truck. It's gonna stop the Dogman. Tromic's link is in the description below, and please check out some of Tony's other amazing products. On to my links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below, as well as my second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page a while back to help raise some money for urbex, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting videos. So far, I have an EVP recorder, an SLS cam, and some trail cams. That link is in the description below as well. Oh yeah, and after the video, please check out a little skit I did for Q centerfire rifles. And now enough jibber jabber. Let's get on with these Dogman encounters, shall we? Today's first Dogman encounter. I live in a town called Montague here in West Michigan, about an hour to an hour and a half as the crow flies southwest of both Big Rapids and Reed City. I live with my father on a family farm that sits on 30 acres of woods, creeks, and marshes. All of my encounters have happened in the year of 2016 from February to October. The first came on or about the 8th of February at approximately 4 in the morning. A heavy winter storm was hitting the area with some nasty weather. I was up early to get the jump on the snow shoveling, so the driveway was accessible for the propane delivery guy later that morning. As I was about halfway down the driveway, I heard a loud splash in the creek to the south of me about 25 yards away. Thinking it was a deer or two, I had jumped. I stopped shoveling and scanned the creek and woodline for any movement. As I scanned the creek, I came to the woodline and saw a pair of yellow, amber-colored eyes about 7.5 to 8 feet tall, standing right next to a huge oak tree. It took off with a super burst of speed to the west. It then leapt into the air. All I heard the next few seconds was the treetops clanging together. It was like it was riding the treetops. I stood there for the next few minutes, questioning my sanity. For the 6 or 7 seconds I saw this creature that stood 7.5 to 8 feet tall, standing on 2 dog-looking legs, big wolf-like head with a snout and ears that resembled a German shepherd, and those eyes yellow and amber-colored. My second sighting came on or about March 24th at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon. I decided to walk up the creek and clear brush. I always carry a firearm with me on these occasions. I'd gotten about 450 yards up the creek that flows through the entire acreage of the property. It was strange to me how completely quiet, I'll just say dead quiet, the woods were. I always jumped something up, whether it was a deer or a turkey or ducks that are always up there. I didn't even hear any birds, and that's really strange. I rounded a bend in the creek when up ahead about 55 yards is what looked like the back of a black bear that was digging into the bank of the creek. As I was setting my firearm down on one of those little islands on the creek, I snapped the branch and it stopped completely what it was doing. I froze and watched this thing stand up on 2 legs and started to turn around towards me. It stood 8 feet tall with a huge wolf-like head, snout, and ears of a dog in all black fur. In my first encounter, the creature's fur was gray in color with some white. This one was all black. It kept glancing over to the east and back towards me. It hadn't yet seen me. It put its snout up in the air like it was looking and sniffing the wind. I'm completely freaking out at this point and reached to pick up my firearm and get out of the area as quickly as I could, when there was a splash up the creek. I looked up and now this thing's on all fours. It stood 5.5 feet tall. At this point, I don't want to run out of fear that it'll give chase, so I stay froze. It looked at me and snarled, and I thought it was sizing me up, and then all of a sudden it looks to the east, back at me one more time, and 2 giant leaps towards the east, and onto the bank of the creek. That's about a 25-foot distance. It then jumps towards the treetops and disappears to the east. I stood there in total disbelief. I got home and my mind is racing, so I decided to confide with my dad about what I had seen. He looked at me like I had just seen an alien and said, "You're crazy and get your head checked out." I know what I saw. My third and final encounter came May 29th, 9 at night. My dad and I were having a fire down by the creek and we were getting low on wood. He asked me if I could get some more wood for the fire from behind the old pole barn. I hesitated and said in a few minutes. I was afraid of those woods, which is something I thought I'd never say. After about 10 minutes, I start to make my way towards the back of the pole barn. It's just about dark and I keep hearing this rustling and low growl like dogs are playing. When I reach the back of the barn, it stops. I light a cigarette and look into the woods, which are about 10 yards away. Again, the woods have gone completely silent, and it's eerie. Then there's a sound like a zipper being zipped up. It was about 30 yards to the south. I waited for a minute and decided to look out where I heard that sound. As I glanced to my right, I saw something move. It's about completely dark, and there's this stench in the air of absolute putridness. It smelled of rotten guts and urine, and I figured it was a rotten carcass of a dead animal. And then, as I'm shining my flashlight, a deep guttural growl like a raccoon would make came from the area that I heard that rustling sound. So I shone my flashlight over towards the sound, and I saw eyes about 5.5 feet off the ground. The eyes were red in color and very shiny. It really didn't freak me out because a lot of critters have red eyes when exposed to light. Then this thing stood up on 2 legs. This thing's really 8 to 8.5 feet tall. It growled again and literally turned around and walked away to the south. I thought I had crapped myself. I went back and my dad asked, "Where's the wood?" I said I didn't feel well and I'm going to bed. I went out the next day to look around the area and I heard a noise. I found only a deer skin. The rest of the deer was gone, including the head. Also, 2 neighbors of mine have heard very eerie howls coming from my family woods, saying they only come out at dusk. They've been in the area for 50+ years and said they've never heard a sound like that they heard. Also, my friend's cat was trapped 60 feet in a tree for 3 days during a storm that hit here just recently and refused to come down. It took a tree cutting experts with a bucket to get him back. The rescuers said the cat hissed at them and didn't cooperate with the rescue, and was shaking uncontrollably. And one more thing. I set apples out for the deer every week and noticed the other day that all the apples were gone, and a rock was in every place where there was an apple. I have a trail cam on the area as I'm writing this, so hopefully I can get some pics. I also found some tracks that look like huge wolves. There used to be deer all around here all of the time. Like about 50 or so. Now you're lucky to see 1 or 2. It's like they just disappeared. It's been really strange around here the last couple of years, and I don't know what to think about it. In all 3 of my encounters, the thing that I saw reminded me of a werewolf. I no longer go near the woods. I was told by my family member that a lot of the wood acreage is Indian burial grounds. I don't share this with many people in fear of getting laughed at and called crazy. Today's second Dogman encounter. We're a group of around 5 or 6 Friends and family, all older teens who were camping overnight at a private campground on a small lake in Kettle Moran State Forest region of Washington County, Wisconsin. The year was approximately 1970 and midsummer. The nearest town was Kewaskum. It's a very rural farmland mixed with deciduous and pine forest. We chose to relocate our campsite a bit further from the main campground in secluded, natural, particularly circle clearing. We liked this spot because of the unusual shape and the fact that it contained a sort of carved-out depression in the center. Here we wished to build our fire and hang out. The sun began to set as we built our fire, roasting hot dogs and singing. Someone happened to remark upon a primordial setting and how we resembled a group of ancient peoples who may have done just what we were doing thousands of years ago. Time passed, and the hour was about 10 or so, and we began to exchange spooky stories. The sky was very clear, and there was an abundance of shooting stars. Also, the moon was so bright, we could actually see quite a bit, although we were all far from city lights. Everything grew quiet. There were crickets, of course, but no other folks were around us. Suddenly, from in the woods, we heard a sound of something coming towards us, breathing heavily. This area had long ago become devoid of any large wild animals. Pieces of wood were cracking and breaking as it walked. We could hear huge, large, trudging footsteps in the underbrush and a loud, snarling, huffing, puffing, breathing sound. It didn't sound like an animal, but more like a human. We also heard twigs snapping and the creature, whatever it was, getting closer and closer to the edge of the woods and near our clearing. It let out several blood-curdling growls and was so close we were terrified. That was all it took for us to be so shaken we gathered up all our gear and ran out of there as fast as we could so the creature wouldn't get us. It really was trying to chase us out of that spot, I believe. None of us slept the entire night. I've been camping situations where young men try to scare you, but they usually are in groups or drunk and end up showing themselves and causing trouble. This was one creature against several of us, and it showed no fear. Today's third and final encounter. I saw something that still has me wondering what it was. It was the mid-90s, just west of Chitlin, Wisconsin, about 2.5 miles. I worked the mid-shift at a nearby factory. Generally, after my shift, I would drive around the countryside to unwind before going home. On this particular morning, I was going to be stopping by a friend's house. He also worked second shift at another factory. As I drove along my friend's road to his house, I saw a deer on the road and stopped in time not to hit it. It was froze in my headlights, so I gave a little light sound of the horn. This startled the animal and it ran off. I proceeded along the road when I noticed 2 red spots looked like eyes, as they were in almond shape. I couldn't make out any body, but it was in a ditch that looked about 7 feet or taller. I kept driving when suddenly there was 2 more deer in the road directly in front of me. I braked and they just stood there, looking at my headlights. One was facing west, the other was facing east. I broke and the truck I was driving stopped, just in time as to have the front bumper gently tap one of the deer, knocking it into the second, and both to the road. They both just laid there. I had to get out of my truck and startle them into getting up, at which time they ran off into the field. As I returned to my truck, I looked back where I saw the red eyes and didn't see them, but I heard something running on the road towards me. I didn't wait around and let it catch up to me. I got in the truck, locked the doors, and began driving. As I started to move, I heard a clunk on the back of my truck. I don't know to this day what that clunk was. I was carrying nothing in my box of the pickup truck that would have rolled back as I drove away. I went to my friend's house and he had already gone to bed, so the hunt was off for that night. The next day I told a fella about the incident and described the location of the incident. He informed me that there was a pet cemetery in that area and there was something like what I described living in the area that guards the pet cemetery. Is this sort of thing real? I spoke to the county police about it, but I think they might have believed I was loopy or something. I never got a report back on what it was. 3 amazing Dogman encounters. Some of the scariest Dogman encounters is when you don't see it, but you hear it. Because that's when your mind starts working. I know my encounter, I visibly saw the eye shine. Multiple spots, low to the ground, high up. Just like our first story when he said he saw this thing about 5.5 feet off the ground, and then there was others about 7 to 8 feet. That's just petrifying, you know? I mean, I don't know which is worse, seeing the creature in its entirety or seeing only the eyes and hearing the noises that it's making, the branches breaking, the growling, just your imagination going wild. My take on it is, I guess I'd rather just see it, and that way I know what the hell is doing it, you know? Otherwise, my imagination's going crazy, and it's gonna be a Dogman, and it's gonna just completely destroy me and my friends like I thought that night. That happened to me when I was 18 years old. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters, and I hope you guys enjoy the little skit that I did at the end for Q centerfire rifles. And with that, guys, I bid you farewell. The honey badger. Zoologists tell us, pound for pound, is the most fearless and ferocious mammal to walk the earth, untamed and aggressive, a critter not to be messed with. The Dogman. Cryptozoologists said this creature is cunning, savage, and godless. 2 of the most terrifying beasts meet, only one will come out alive. Q centerfire rifles gave humans a fighting chance. The honey badger. 300 blackout, original and unique. The Dogman and other cryptids will now know fear. The honey badger, the fix, and the sugar weasel. Click on the link and check out all of Q's badass firearms, accessories, and swag.